Am I the only one who like will hear sound effects from movies and immediately think it's really super weird? Like the other day I was walking and I distinctly heard my footsteps sounding like the stormtroopers walking down the road. Like the footstep noise that they make. I don't know what I'm about. Maybe I'm just being weird. Hey guys, and welcome to another video of Claire's Ciniflix Corner. Now for those of you who are new to the channel, something that I am doing at the moment is I'm doing a movie review of all of the original Star Wars films in order up until we get to Solo, which is coming out on May the 24th, and I'm so excited. But today let's talk about my all-time favourite Star Wars film, which is Star Wars Episode 5 and Empire Strikes Back. Obviously I'm going to put a spoiler warning. If you haven't heard any of the spoilers out of Empire Strikes Back, I would advise not to watch this movie unless you already know them, in which case please continue. But if you really don't want to get spoiled, I don't want to be the one to spoil you, so please go watch the film and then come back to this video. After the success of Star Wars A New Hope, there was a lot of people wanting to know where the next chapter of this Star Wars trilogy was going to go. In fact, Star Wars became something that people wanted to know details of. They wanted everything they could possibly get on this movie. They came out with their next masterpiece, which is probably one of the greatest movies ever made, Empire Strikes Back. Empire Strikes Back came out in 1980. It was directed by Irvin Krishna, hope I'm saying that right, and it stars Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and the story was created, of course, by George Lucas. We start off on the planet Hoth. Now this is where my positives start. I love the locations that are used in this Star Wars film. We only really went to two locations when we were watching Star Wars A New Hope, and that was Tatooine and Yavin 4. The rest of it typically stars in space because once again it's a Star Wars, it's set in space. And so it was really nice seeing all these different planets and making this universe expand a lot more. And one of the planets that we go to, of course, right at the beginning of the film is the planet Hoth. One of the things that I love about the Hoth sequence is, of course, the visual effects and the prop department and all of these other departments that work together in creating what we now know as the Battle of Hoth. The Battle of Hoth is between the rebels and the Imperial walkers, which are basically going towards the base to try and destroy it. And the rebels are holding them off. And so what was really cool about this whole sequence is the stop animation. The stop animation in this movie is incredible. Like, it literally feels like these huge, big, massive Imperial walkers are literally walking across snow about to attack. Like, it really does feel realistic. Like, it's hard to detach yourself and thinking that this wasn't real, these are just little clay figurines moving across snow. Like, it just blows your mind, and I just love it. If you watch that sequence, it is done so beautifully. And that's another thing, this movie, you can tell that it came out a couple of years after A New Hope because its quality is just so much better and the visual effects are so much better. It's just a really good, fun movie. Another thing right at the beginning that we see is the costumes. The costumes in this movie are best demonstrated by Leia Organa's costumes. Her costumes are so amazing and so more colourful. Like, we're used to seeing her in the famous like white dress, like in the figurine that I have here. Like, it's usually like a white dress combination with the hair in a bun. Like, that was pretty much what she was wearing throughout the whole of A New Hope. And so seeing her wearing something different nearly every single time she lands on a different planet is just so cool and is so amazing. My favourite costume in particular is what she wears on Hoth because her hair looks amazing and her outfit is simple, but it still makes her look beautiful, and it just really works together. It makes her look really pretty, and Carrie Fisher is naturally pretty, and so it just makes her look even more pretty. And the makeup, she looks stunning, like in this movie. This movie also has its memorable lines, and one of those lines is said between Leia and Han, which is the famous one, "Why, you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder. who's scruffy looking? It's like so cool. I just love that line so much, and it just makes the movie for me. Like, it's one of those things where you just like, okay, this is gonna be good just because the dialogue is so much better in this movie. So one of the really amazing sequences in this movie is between Luke and the Wampa. Now the Wampa is basically the really big Yeti that we get to see. No, not Chewbacca, the Yeti. And this Yeti randomly attacks him during the snow. The next time we see Luke, he's basically hanging from the ceiling, and during which he forces out a lightsaber, his lightsaber, from the ground. Now, what I love about this is the behind the scenes to this scene, and it just shows how simple the filmmaking was in those days, but how effective it was. Literally, Mark Hamill, all that he did was throw the lightsaber into the snow, and then they reversed the video. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should try doing that and see what happens. It probably won't be as good as it is obviously in this movie. And so I think that's really awesome, and it's one of my favorite sequences. From the get-go, this movie is just wham, get right into it. Let's get back into Star Wars. Like, there's no need for backstory, there's none of that slow pacing that we had with New Hope. So the next planet we visit, of course, we follow Luke, and he ends up on the Dagobah system, or planet Dagobah. And we get introduced to one of my, if not my, favorite character from the whole of the Star Wars series, and that is Yoda. Now, when Yoda is first introduced, he is kind of like this funny, lovable character. This film is very dark, but there's still a lot of humor in it, but it's also clashing with the dark themes. It's a lot darker than A New Hope, and you can really see that when you get to the location of where Dagobah is, because Dagobah is very dark, it's very green, it's very misty. You don't really know. It's mysterious. It's mysterious to the audience as it is to Luke. And so when you meet Yoda, he's just really weird, and you think, man, he's really crazy, but something just draws you to him. Like, you just love him. He's funny, he's hilarious. The whole battle between him and R2-D2, it's just cool. But then as the film progresses, Yoda is once again introduced, and he makes himself known to the audience and Luke Skywalker, and he takes on this whole other role. And he's just full of wisdom, so wise, and you just love him. He's amazing. I love his funny character, and I also love his seriousness. You just want Yoda to be around with you just so he could give you wise wisdom like all the time. Like, he's just cool. He's my favorite character. Yoda is voiced and also performed by Frank Oz, who of course is known for his performances in The Muppets, and he is just amazing. In fact, when my best friend watched Star Wars for the first time the other day, she literally said to me, she was like, I didn't know that Yoda was a puppet. Like, he looks so realistic that you can't tell that he was actually puppeteered and not a guy in like loads of makeup like that. That's just phenomenon, and it just shows that even though he is a puppet, that it still stands today. He still looks realistic to my best friend. Meanwhile, we have Han and Leia and Chewbacca and C-3PO, who are in the Millennium Falcon still trying to run away from the Star Destroyers. Now, for me, this part is where the film kind of goes a little slow. Whenever I think about this movie and its negatives, it's usually that I feel that we are on the Millennium Falcon with Han and Leia and C-3PO and Chewbacca for a really long time, and nothing really happens per se to the story. We do get character development, don't get me wrong, like the relationship between Leia and Han grows a little bit, but for me it's a little slow here, and I'm like, it's kind of where I, as a child at least, I kind of got disinterested in it. I was more interested in wanting to see Luke training, but I guess that's just personal preference. Like, now that I'm older, I appreciate it a lot more and it doesn't feel so dragged out. But, you know, you have to pick a con somewhere, and it just happened to be in that sequence. So they're in this asteroid field to try and get rid of the Star Destroyers. They get attacked by a creature that lives on one of the asteroids, and then they wind up looking for Lando Calrissian. Meanwhile, we have Darth Vader. Now, Darth Vader in this movie is so much darker and so much superior. Like, he doesn't have Grand Moff Tarkin, who has him by his leash, but he gets to be full-on Darth Vader, and he's so intimidating. What I also like about this movie is he becomes more human. There's a sequence where Darth Vader is putting his helmet on, and you get a back shot of his head, and it just makes you realize, wow, this is a guy. Like, it clarifies anyone's misinterpretation that he was a robot. There is a human side to him, and that in a way makes him a lot more darker because you're like, oh crap, like this guy could actually do some damage. He has human feelings, he has human imperfections. You get a little bit scared of him. I love his entrance. First time we see Darth Vader, we get a shot of the stars and then his silhouette of his helmet, and he doesn't have to say much. He literally gives an order, turns around, and it's just like, wow, this is Star Wars, like Darth Vader. And then we go back to Luke. He's still training with Yoda, and then we have one of the most quoted lines of any Star Wars film. Do or do not. There is no try. This sequence for me just gives me goosebumps every single time. And Luke experiences this firsthand, where Yoda, who we see is a very small character, and he even says, like, judge me by my size, do you? You don't need to, because my ally is the Force. I trust in that Force, and that even though that I'm small, I know that I can do great things. And so he is able to lift Luke Skywalker's X-Wing that has got stuck in the swamp out of it. Also, another thing about this movie is when we are introduced to the dark side, we get this amazing new score that John Williams did for this film, and it's probably the most iconic Star Wars music besides the theme tune, and that is of course the Imperial March. Seriously, when this comes on, it's amazing. It's so powerful. You know exactly that it's the dark side, and it's not Darth Vader's theme. It's so much more effective when it's the Empire. And you associate it with the Empire. You should associate with the Empire because that's when they use it in the film. And it's just so powerful and so dark at the same time. Like, John Williams is just so amazing at creating scores for movies. Like, he blows me away. Everything that he's done is amazing. So we then cut to Han Solo, Leia, Chewbacca, and they meet Lando Calrissian, and he's a new character that they've introduced. The actor's name who plays Lando Calrissian is Billy D. Williams, and he puts across another amazing scoundrel that just bounces off Han Solo so much. Like, he actually gives competition between Han and Leia. Like, it's so interesting. But you like him, but there's also a sense of mistrust. Like, from the first time you see him, he's like angry at Han Solo, and you're like, man, like, do I like this guy? Like, why is he being so horrible to Han Solo? Like, I'm starting to be won over to Han Solo's character. And then they just have like a big bro hug, and you're just like, man, like, okay, maybe he is cool. But there's still like this weird like unsurety, because Leia's not sure about him. Han keeps saying that he's not sure about him, and so we as an audience are just like, I don't know whether to trust this guy or not. And then of course, boom, C-3PO gets blown up by someone, and Chewbacca is in charge of putting him back together. And then Lando's like, hey, do you want to get drinks? They go to get drinks, boom, Darth Vader whips out Han Solo's gun. We would be honored if you would join us. Like, it's one of the coolest lines, and you feel like you want to say it at a dinner party. It's sick. But it's so cool the way it's shot. Like, doors open, Darth Vader stands up, you cut to Han Solo's like pointing his gun, boom, there goes the gun into Darth Vader's hand. And then of course the next character that we're introduced, well, a little bit before then, and that is Boba Fett. Boba Fett's character, I never really got as a kid. I never really got the whole, oh my goodness, Boba Fett is amazing, I want to see more of Boba Fett. Like, I never really got that. I don't know, he was just a bit plain for me. He was just a guy in a suit, like, he was cool and everything. But in this film, you don't really see him do anything. Like, he's literally just standing there with a gun, and he's just got this really cool voice, but that's about it. But, you know, I appreciate the character, and of course, like, when you watch Return of the Jedi, he gets a bit more action. But yeah, I never really got the whole, I love Boba Fett, I want to see more Boba Fett, but that's just me. The guy who did the movement and acting for Boba Fett, who was in the suit, his name was Jeremy Bulloch, and the guy who does the famous voice, depending on which version we're watching, but of course I'm doing it based on the original, was Jason Wingreen. So meanwhile, on Dagobah, Luke gets a vision, and in this vision he basically sees Han and Leia in trouble, and he gets really worried about it, and he's like, okay, I need to go save them. Like, suddenly I understand the Force and I know what I'm doing, so I need to leave. And of course Obi-Wan and Yoda are just like, no, like, if you believe in what your comrades believe in, then you won't mind them getting hurt, and just trust in the Force and all this. But Luke's just like, no, they're my friends, like, I want to go look for them. And I can see his point. You know, if I saw a vision and my friends were in danger, I would want to go and save them. But then again, I could also see Yoda's point of view, because it's like, you don't know enough about this Force. Like, you couldn't even take the X-Wing out of the ground. Like, suddenly you're able to go and take on Darth Vader, and it's Luke's problem. He's not looking in the moment. He's always looking to the future, and I think that's why this vision is so key. And also, I forgot to mention the first vision he has when he goes into the bottomless part of Dagobah and he fights a battle with Darth Vader, who actually turns out to be Luke. Like, we learn that Luke Skywalker's biggest fear is that he'll turn into his father, that he'll go to the dark side. But like a lot of arrogant teenage boys, he's just like, oh, I should go save them, that's more important. But in a way, it could have led to him turning to the dark side. But I think the acting in this scene is very well done. Like, you really do feel that Mark Hamill loves Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford. He just does it really well, and it just feels like, who do I pick? And then the next scene that we go to, we get Han Solo frozen in carbonite, and I think this is so cool. Just the way that the carbon freezing is done, like the end product. Hands over to the prop team. It looks amazing. It literally looks legit, like this, that Han Solo is encased in carbonite. Like, I really felt when I watched this as a kid, like, wow, like, this is serious. And you kind of imagine what it might have been like to be encased in carbonite. Like, that'd be intense. Then Luke turns up and we have one of the most amazing battles between Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader. What could go wrong? Like, seriously, it is so cool. You want more lightsabers after watching like hardly anything in A New Hope, and you get it in this film. I think it must be like maybe like 10-15 minutes long. It's not just lightsabers, like it's not two guys just like hacking at each other with the lightsabers, but you also get the Force use that Darth Vader has and like his powers. Like, he knocks Luke over so many times with like just different things that are around him, and it's just like, wow, like the Force is strong with this one. That's such a bad cheesy line, but it literally is like crazy. And then we get the most shocking reveal in movie history, which is of course Darth Vader's famous line, "No, I am your father." This is also one of the most misquoted quotes I think ever. A lot of people think that the line is actually, "Luke, I am your father," but it's not. The actual line is, "No, I am your father." Originally, when this film was being shot, little fact for you if you didn't know this, the original line for that scene was, "Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father." And he's like, "He told me enough. He told me you killed him." And he's like, "No, Obi-Wan killed your father." And of course you get Mark Hamill's natural performance. And then after they shot the scene, the director, Krishna, came to him and was like, "Hey, so we got something, but you can't tell anyone, and only George Lucas and I know. And you can't tell any of the other cast, like, we've got to keep this under wraps. If it gets out there, we know that you've done it." And he told him to keep the secret of that Luke was actually the son of Darth Vader. And even Mark Hamill was surprised at this reveal. He was not expecting it at all, and I think none of us were expecting it. It's now one of the most memorable scenes and probably one of the biggest spoilers in the whole Star Wars. If you know that, kind of ruins your Star Wars experience, but that's what happens with social media today. People just ruining it in our natural pop culture, but you know, it happens. Okay, as the scene continues, Luke kind of commits suicide, but not really, ends up out chute, hangs down, and Force calls Leia to him. They get picked up by Lando Calrissian, they fly off. Luke has a communication between him and Darth Vader, gets his hand fixed, and then we get the famous shot with Luke, Leia, R2-D2 and C-3PO, and then off goes Lando Calrissian with Chewbacca, and they fly off, and you don't know what happens. And I think that's so cool. You are left wanting more. You are left like, what? Wait, I want more of this film. Like, what just happened? Okay, another fun fact for you is the Emperor scene. So in the middle, there's a sequence between Darth Vader and the Emperor. We finally get to meet the Emperor. We just heard about him in the first one. Finally, we get to meet him. I watched the original one, obviously, because I prefer the originals to the CG edition. But there is a really cool fact that I found out about the Emperor. So, in the original version of the film, the scene in which Darth Vader converses with the Emperor, it used to look a lot different. Though many viewers automatically associate the character with actor Ian, the original Emperor was an old woman with chimpanzee eyes and the voice of Clive Revill. And another fact for you is about Han Solo, because it's Han Solo season. We need more facts about Han Solo. Han Solo's use of his mount entrails to keep Luke warm is actually an American Indian trick. According to a legend, an Indian hunter had killed a bear and then became trapped by a sudden blizzard. He cut open the bear's stomach and climbed inside and stayed warm and safe until the storm had subsided. So that's where the idea came from, and I thought that was really interesting. So yes, Star Wars is absolutely amazing. Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back is incredible. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you go watch it, because it really is, for me, the best Star Wars movie ever made, and possibly one of the best movies ever made. I'm going to give it a 5-star rating. This movie is just so incredible. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm excited. Next week I'm going to be releasing Return of the Jedi. We're going to talk together about that, and then we'll be on to Solo. So guys, as usual, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and comment below and let us know what you thought of this video. Let us know what you thought about Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back. Maybe you can talk how excited you are for Solo. Just let us know. Have a good day, and I'll see you on the other side. Bye! The Yeti-like creature. I feel really bad that I can't remember what it's called. What is the name of the creature that fights Luke on Hoth? You have to ask Siri a Star Wars question.
Okay, I found this on the web for what is the name of the creature that fights Luke on House.
And so it's like, wow, Darth Vader. Gotta hand it to you. You are one dark character. If we don't do things, then we're not. There's no point in even trying, because trying is nothing. We have to do things. Man, I just mucked up that whole amazing quote, but yeah. And that is, of course, the Empire's March. The Emperor's March. The Empire's March. Why am I screwing this up so bad? What is the name of Darth Vader's theme tune in Star Wars?
Sorry, I can't search that. But I can search by title, actors, year, and categories like romantic comedies or sci-fi.
Mum?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll just wait until
What?
she's finished making a bit of noise.
I know, I'm just putting this away.
Look, it's Mum appearing in our videos. Oh, now that's in my shot though. Wait, move it out the shot. Thanks. And you get it in this film. Like, you get practically maybe like 20 minutes. I don't actually know how long it is, but like...
That's called a Claire moment.
My Claire moment.
So what you do?